Compliance. Remember, do not use the following work practices and engineering controls regardless of the measured exposures. High-speed saws without point-of-cut ventilation to capture dust. Compressed air hoses to blow off dust and debris. Never any dry sweeping, shoveling, dusting, or cleanup of any kind. Protective clothing and other equipment. The OSHA construction standard requires protective clothing to be worn for Class 1 work and whenever a negative exposure assessment is not provided prior to beginning work. Supervisors are required to inspect the protective clothing at least once per shift. If the clothing is ripped or torn, it must be repaired or replaced. Protective clothing consists of disposable coveralls, foot coverings, a head covering, and gloves. It does not include t-shirts, jeans, sweatbands, etc. If any of these items are used inside the work area, they should be kept in the abatement area until the job is completed. Upon completion, they should be disposed of as asbestos-contaminated waste. Other protective clothing such as hard hats and safety shoes or boots should remain in the abatement area during the project and upon completion should be placed in a labeled plastic bag and taken to the next project. Entering the work area. Protective clothing is put on in the clean room of the decontamination unit before entering the work area. The following sequence is recommended. All street clothes, including undergarments, are removed and stored in a clean, convenient location. Valuables are secured. Disposable coveralls and foot coverings are put on. Slack in the suit around ankles and thighs is taped to prevent tripping or catching. Tape pants over foot coverings if they are separate garments. The respirator is inspected, donned, and field fit checked. The hood or head covering is put on over the respirator head straps. The worker passes through the airlocks and shower to the contaminated equipment room. Deck shoes or safety boots are put on as required. Gloves are put on and taped over the sleeves. Cotton gloves are usually worn, but leather ones should be used when handling metal lathe. Other protective equipment such as hard hats and safety glasses, if a half-face respirator is used, are put on. Protective clothing consists of disposable coveralls, foot coverings, a head covering, and gloves. It does not include t-shirts, jeans, sweatbands, etc. If any of these items are used inside the work area, they should be kept in the abatement area until the job is completed. Upon completion, they should be disposed of as asbestos-contaminated waste. Other protective clothing such as hard hats and safety shoes or boots should remain in the abatement area during the project and upon completion should be placed in a labeled plastic bag and taken to the next project. Asbestos removal, storage, and disposal. Wet removal techniques. EPA's regulations, AHERA and NESHAP, and OSHA's asbestos regulations all require the use of wetting while working with asbestos materials. First, wetting reduces the amount of asbestos fibers in the air, protecting workers and the environment from exposure. Second, water will help some materials come off surfaces easier. Wet removal techniques are further improved by adding a wetting agent to the water called a surfactant, a combination of chemicals that helps the water penetrate the material and increases the chance of individual fibers getting wet. The final byproduct is called amended water. The first step is to thoroughly wet the surface of the material with the amended water. Next comes the gross removal, which requires the scraping off of the friable material while someone keeps it wet. Bags containing asbestos waste are put in the bag out or waste transfer station, then wet wiped and double bagged before placing them into the truck or dumpster. After as much of the material as possible has been scraped off, the crew begins secondary removal, for which various techniques can be used. Typically, a combination of brushing and wet wiping is used. Special considerations. Amended water is not completely effective in controlling fibers emitted from any material containing amosite asbestos. Some contractors use ethylene glycol or its oils to help reduce fiber release. Steam or hot water distribution networks should be shut down if possible when insulation is being removed. If these systems must stay online, special consideration must be given to avoid heat stress, burns, or oxygen deficient situations. When airline respirators are used, the airlines must not come into contact with hot pipes, which might burn a hole in the rubber line. If airlines are worn by workers on scaffolds, they must ensure that the airlines do not become wrapped around objects on the ground or the scaffold. Leaving the work area. Whenever anyone leaves a work area, they must go through the decontamination sequence. This sequence should include the following steps. Brush or vacuum off gross contamination before entering the dirty room. Remove all protective garments and equipment except respirators in the dirty room. Remove clothing and place in plastic bags labeled asbestos-containing waste. Go to the shower while still wearing the respirator. Rinse head and respirator. Hold breath and remove respirator until face is rinsed. Once the area where face and mask were in contact is rinsed, breathe normally. Wash face and body. Discard the cartridges in a plastic bag if they are not protected from water damage. Disinfect respirator. Go to the clean room, dry off, and dress in street clothes. Glove bags. A glove bag consists of a 6 milliliter or thicker polyvinyl chloride (PVC) bag fitted with glove sleeve assemblies. They should have a tool pouch inside and ports for the HEPA vacuum and wetting wand from the sprayer. Glove bags may be used for straight runs of pipe. Special glove bags are made for elbows, fittings, and for extra large or vertical applications. 2 persons are typically required to perform a glove bag project. A third person is often available to assist with supplies. Each team member receives training on the use and limitations of glove bag projects in respiratory protection and medical surveillance program.